Thank you, ma'am, I appreciate it. Joe, you got your, drink that now.
Did you want some of these?
No, thanks.
Grab the next one.
Oh, I appreciate it, thank you. Well, that way you can say what you know. Right?
Right?
A lot for that.
It won't make it
But I
out of here, I
guess
guarantee you.
you gotta engineer it and make sure it doesn't
It'll be done right here, huh?
fall in and collapse and whatever else.
If you don't
We
need
don't
it.
want to be on TV when they have a wedding out there.
Sure, don't wanna move. As I am.
It's being paid by someone else.
Turn the volume down.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And everybody remember to turn your cell phones to mute or off and turn your microphones on, and we'll have roll call.
Mayor Schomburger,
Here.
Councilors Anderson, Baker,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
Dykes,
Here.
and Quinlan.
Here.
Everyone has a copy of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 11th. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, they stand approved as submitted. Visitors and delegations, I don't see any. So moving on to management. First reading of ordinance number 846-16. Is there a call for a counselor to introduce the ordinance and read the ordinance by title?
I would like to introduce the first reading of ordinance 846-16, parental responsibility in Brush Municipal Court.
And a second?
Second.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance for publication on first reading and, okay. Motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance that we had talked about at a work session several weeks ago. It's being presented to the council at the request of the municipal judge because of some lack of control that he has over the completion of juvenile sentences. It's a pretty common provision in municipal courts. It would be very helpful to our court, particularly as a court not of record. Corey and I have reviewed this, and been reviewed, I think, 2 times by Judge Jones, and is presented to you tonight for your consideration. We ask approval.
All right. Other discussion?
Well, yeah. I thought that we already had remedy. And I have 2 problems with this. One is that we do have a remedy.
Get your microphone on.
And another is that,
Hit the button.
I see it as aggressive. I think it's a pattern of aggressive policing that I don't like. The model of it came to us from a city that was having trouble with gangs. And I don't think that we want to be regulated like a big city. I'm against the ordinance as it is because I think there are many ramifications that could come because of it that aren't foreseen. I think that certain groups of people will be harmed. And I'm against the ordinance.
Okay. Other discussion? Any other thoughts? All right. Then we'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Schomburger,
Yes.
Councilor Anderson,
No.
Councilor Baker,
Yes.
Councilor Becker,
Yes.
Councilor Dykes,
Yes.
Councilor Quinlan.
Yes.
It passes with Councilor Anderson voting against.
Moving on to B, award the bid for decking at the course at Pettis Park. Lance.
Yeah, we put a ad for bids in the Rush News Tribune a few weeks back, and only one bid was received, and that was by Buildings by Design. We had budgeted $87,000 for this project. The bid came in at $85,243, and I would, staff recommends approval for that. This is a project that is being
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It seems high, but then I've seen those YouTube videos of a wedding where everybody goes, I don't want that.
It'll be a very, very nice facility. I have the plans right here that was submitted if anybody would like to look at that.
All right. Other discussion? Do we have a motion? Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we award the bid for decking at the course at Pettus Park to Buildings by Design.
Second.
Motion second, discussion, roll call vote.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Dykes,
Yes.
Quinlan,
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger.
Yes. Number C, the purchase agreement between BM Processors Incorporated and Morgan County. And Bo, you're gonna talk about that too.
Yes, sir. This is in the, Phase 1 part of the Rosewood subdivision. The county has owned that land for a number of years. There was also another landowner out there, Danielson. Danielson sold his lots to BM Processors about a month ago. This contract is for the county to sell the remaining land in the Phase 1 subdivision to BM Processors. BM Processors is the LLC that owns and operates the Bison plant a little to the west of this property. The city is involved in this because we have in our funds about $100,000 that was derived from proceeds of a surety bond that we were able to collect on after some litigation a number of years ago when the original developer of Rosewood abandoned the project and didn't complete the infrastructure that the developer had committed to installing. I think the amount we got was about $76,000, and it's grown up to over $100,000 now. The city is involved in it because BM Processors, as a part of this agreement in Part 9, is waiving its claim to those funds. And that would leave the city then and the county to determine what to do with those funds. We're asked to sign an acknowledgement on this form related to the waiver, nothing more. We are working on an IGA with the county on the use of those funds, and that's not ready for consideration at a work session or elsewhere yet. But I recommend that we obtain council approval for the signing of this agreement simply to acknowledge our understanding of the waiver by BM Processors to any of those funds.
Okay, because I've been having a lot of different thoughts about how the money should be broken up or spent, and you know, our costs in the past in it, and you know, how it all should go, but that's a different discussion, is that right?
That's a different discussion, yes,
Okay.
sir. And you know, I think, Joanne will have to goose me if I'm wrong, but I think all our costs were recovered from this litigation before we made a deposit and set this aside as funds for
Okay.
infrastructure improvements.
Okay, all right. Yep. Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve the purchase agreement between BM Processor and Morgan County.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. Roll call vote.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan,
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
Number D, approve city administrator selection for chief of police.
Okay, each council person, I did give you a copy of the advertisement that the city had put together for the chief of police. One side of that is mostly just about the community, and then the other side of it is more about the police department and some of the qualifications that we're looking for, and also just outline the position, some of the needs of the community that we're wanting the police chief to start working on once they got hired. So that's just a little bit of information, kind of refresh your memory on that. But we started that process over 2 months ago, and essentially what happened was we did have 10 applicants apply for the position, and when our human resources specialists start going through those applications and resumes, she took the ones that weren't qualified or didn't have enough information, took those out of the pool, and we had a short list of 5 candidates that remained. And at that point in time, what we did is we put together a community committee to help with the review process. And the mayor was on that committee, Kim was on that committee, and then we had 3 citizens that were on the committee. They came from one from each of the wards. And then we also we asked the Chamber of Commerce to provide us a person, and they sent out an email to the businesses to get a representative from the business community to be on that committee as well. So we did have one business person that stepped forward and was the business person for the group. And lastly, we had the school superintendent also was part of that community committee, and he actually led the group through the process to interview those 5 individuals. We also went a step further where we wanted to get a good feel from the community's perspective that the new chief would be a good fit, but we also want to ensure that on the law enforcement end of things that they were very well qualified. So we did have another police chiefs panel, and we had police chiefs from Evans, Sterling, and Lyman. They were on the panel, and they did an interview the same day that the community committee interviewed the candidates. Finally, out of that group, we narrowed it down to 3 top candidates from those 2 committees that were interviewing them. And those 3 candidates were then interviewed by the department heads. And that's because they're going to be working quite a bit with the department heads. And then also, finally that day, I did an interview with those 3. And we came up with, after looking at all the input from each of those groups, we came up with a finalist. And that finalist is Travis Anderson. And Travis Anderson is currently employed by the Montezuma County Sheriff's Office. And we gave a conditional job offer to him. And the conditional job offer was put in place because we do have the condition that the city council is the final approval on the selection. Okay. Also, we had to take the time to go through the some background checks, and that was we did a few different background checks. One is through the CBI, and that's more for state violations, and those came back no violations in the state. We also went and did a personnel file review, where I went to Cortez last week and looked through the personnel files to see what was in his records, and everything looked pretty good there as well. And Loranda coordinated with Mountain States Employers Council, and they did a federal level background check. And so everything came back really positive from there. And finally, they also did an educational background because we did ask for some education requirements. They verified education and degrees that were awarded. Lastly, today there was a psychological evaluation that took place and a fit for duty that took place this afternoon, and he passed all of those just fine. So the recommendation that I do have is to approve Mr. Travis Anderson as a selection for Chief of Police for the City of Brush.
Thank you. Yeah. Kim and I were on that committee, and it was a very difficult decision for the committee. Everybody was completely and totally qualified and talented. It's hard to pick, but I think you did pick a very talented and great person. So I think it'd be good. Any other comments?
Very thorough.
Sounds like a pretty exhaustive process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, based on all that, I think, that was probably covered everything, sounds like.
It was great in a way that we had so many great applicants. It was very difficult because we had so many great applicants. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the city administrator's selection for chief of police, Travis Anderson.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion, and roll call vote.
Okay. Counselor Becker?
Yes.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Number E, award the bid for the English feedlot cleanup.
Okay, each council person has a copy of the, make sure we did get the copy up here, didn't we? You got the only copy?
Yes.
Yeah, we all have the copy of the English feedlot cleanup. And we put together a scope of work to start taking down all the pens and corrals and a lot of the fencing that's out there. And this is the first phase in starting, well, actually not the first phase, but this is probably the second or third phase of the cleanup. Previously, we had a lot of the concrete bunkers and those type of things taken out of there, some other scrap metal taken out of there. And now we're starting to get down to the real nitty gritty of cleaning up the feedlot. And before we can do much more with the land, we gotta get the physical objects out of the way, which is all the pens that are out there. And so what Dell did is he put together a bid that had different alternatives in it so that he could bid out a section at a time. And fortunately, the bids came back in very well. I think you had about 7 or 8 bids. And there was a lowest apparent bidder, but he bid so low, and then once Dell went back and talked to him, make sure he really looked at the project, he pulled out his bid because it was way too low. So the bidder that we have now is H2, and you have that H2 Enterprises proposal, and this is to take out the majority of all the fencing, corrals, pens, those type of things on the front half of the property closest to the highway. So this is the first step, and once we get the fencing and all that out of there, Dell's intent is to use our crews to get some training done out there, start knocking down some of the hills and things like that out there, break up the ground so some of the water will start getting rid of some of the water that's been pooling up out there for years. And this isn't something that we had anticipated, but then after long discussions with Dale, we felt that we should get moving on it to get that cleanup done. We still have, and there's our intent to apply for a grant through the state to do the next step of the master planning of it, but we really need to get the cleanup started. And so if this for some reason takes Dell's budget over what he has in it today, then we'll come back for a supplemental with this in the future. So we're recommending to approve this so we can start cleaning up the feedlot.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve or award the bid for English feedlot cleanup to H2 Enterprise for the amount of $29,532.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. It's a quiet group. All right, roll call vote.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Finance.
Okay. I make a motion we approve disbursements and payroll from April 11th through the 25th of 2016 totaling $332,285.89.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Another roll call vote.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Becker?
Yes.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Staff reports. Joanne, you're first, finance.
I have a couple items this evening. The first thing is that I would just like to remind council and the community that your April 30th water bills this month will include that new water rate increase. And so if anyone has questions on that, just give us a call and we'll walk you through it, do an analysis on your specific account. The other item is just as a reminder that your financial status report will not be received until the second council meeting in May.
Thank you. Police Department, Corey.
Just one item on April 30th, we'll be doing the National Drug Take Back. It's going to be at Equitable Savings. We're going to have an officer there taking the prescription drugs from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So,
All right, thank you. Parks and Recreation is next on my list. Lance.
I have nothing.
Okay. Utilities, Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to report that our stormwater project is progressing along. We did experience a little bit of a delay with that last storm that we had. It made it difficult to haul mud and soup. And so we finally got it dried out just in time for another week of rain. And so, but it doesn't appear that this is going to put us back much in terms of time. We're still waiting for the pipe crew. That's what we need for this project. We're just going to lose some dig time. But that can be made up simultaneously while putting the pipe in the ground. This week, we are accepting tree branches over in the parking lot south of the post office, and we will also accept those up and through Saturday for chipping. If you don't get that opportunity to utilize this service, then as long as you bundle your tree branches no more than 4 foot in length, 1.5 inch diameter, and enough that one person can pick it up and put it in the back of the trash truck, we will pick that up as well. And finally, we're gonna start focusing on potholes, so hopefully you'll get to see our crews out and about, trying to take care of some of the moisture damage we incurred this last winter.
I have a question on the spring cleanup.
Yes.
TVs.
Set them out, segregated with your trash, just like you would if you have a mattress, set it out next to your trash, keep it separated, do not put it in the trash itself.
Yep.
Just keep it segregated and set it off to the side. Any electronics,
Same day as regular pickup.
same day as regular pickup.
And that's for city residents,
Correct.
not county to bring in or other
Correct.
cities to bring it over to drop them off.
How about a hot water heater?
Certainly. Set it out, take care of it.
Dale, on the branches over here at the city, do those need to be bundled at the 4
No,
foot lengths?
you can just dump them raw. As
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Be exciting. Fire department, Tad.
Just a couple of things. We had 3 people that worked on the downtown sidewalk wash on Saturday, prior to all the other volunteers coming in and working. Went pretty quick, and it looks nice, everything. They got done Saturday, it looks really good. And then Sunday, we had extrication training. We have some new extrication tools, if you remember. We had Craig Fire come down, and we put out 12 cars and let a lot of the new guys just go to work on those cars. So it was 8 hours of really good training. So that's about it.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is city clerk, Andrea.
Okay, just a reminder, Monday, May 2nd is our citizen outreach at the course with Counselor Dykes and Bain. And then the CML district meeting hosted by Sterling is the 25th of May, so I'll need everyone's RSVPs if you can. And then the rest you can look at at your leisure. That's it.
Thank you. Finally, community development, Karen.
Good evening. I have a couple of items I wanted to note this evening. The first is that Arbor Day went extremely well back on April 15th. In fact, I think we had our largest attendance ever at that particular event. And I think a lot of that was the parents that came out to support their children and students in planting a tree for one of the classmates for Austin and Megan. So that went really well. It's a great looking project there along the bike path in Sunset Park. So if you haven't taken a look, do swing by. And one of these days it'll be a nice shady spot along that path. And then related to that, prepping for both Arbor Day and then the rest of our tree programs, the city's crews were a tremendous help. So much thanks to the parks guys and then the streets crews. Both were fantastic in terms of pulling everything together. And then some extra things we needed to do this year because of the storm that came in on Saturday. They actually were the ones who took care of getting the street trees planted this year instead of our usual volunteers. This just wasn't possible to have volunteers plant trees in a snowstorm. Just doesn't make for good PR relations with anybody. So thanks to the heroes in my mind from Public Works and the Parks and Rec departments. Very grateful. And then the last thing I wanted to note is the Planning Commission will be meeting on Monday, May 16th at 5:30. There's 2 items on their agenda. First is a final plat for Love Subdivision. And then the second thing is a hearing related to the temporary workforce housing ordinance that we've been discussing at a couple different work sessions. So that'll be the first opportunity for the general public to review that particular ordinance, and then of course any other comments they may have about that subdivision. So any questions, just get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, city administrator.
Okay, first item is we did get a request for donations for the Sarah House, and Joanne has contacted the executive director there and coordinated with them to let them know when our donation requests are due, which that's August 31st, end of August. We always make that the date for them to submit for the upcoming year so we can put it into the budget. So that was completed last week. Also, we're still working with CDOT and the Federal Highway Administration, and we hope in the near future, next week or two, we have an IGA with the FHWA for funding for Mill Street. And that's from Colorado Avenue to Custer, and that's the worst section of it, and we qualify for some funding for the rainstorms and all that we had there. So essentially that's an 80-20 split. Federal government pays 80%, city pays 20%, so we're hoping that that does come about. The other thing I just wanted to make comment of, Vicki mentioned the long process of selecting a police chief, so I wanted to put out a special thanks to those who were part of that process. That's Mayor Schoenberger, Councilor Dykes, Kara Dragert, Superintendent Bill Wilson, Iva Horner, Walt Bailey, and Linda Segelkey. And then also Chief Lynn Yao from the city or town of Lyman, Chief Tyson Kerr from the city of Sterling, Chief Rick Brandt from the city of Evans, and then all the department heads that took part in the interviews and the meet and greet, and then our HR committee, which is Karen, Joanne, and Loranda. They all took part in that process, and it did take, we were trying to move it along but not be too fast, but not drag it out too long either. So thanks for all that work and the time you spent on that. That's all I have.
Before you, on the same note, when is the new police chief? First of all, has I assume he's accepted?
Yes, he's accepted, and around 4:45 today, we got that his fit for duty was complete and everything was passed. So we're going to be calling him tomorrow to look at timelines, but at the latest, the first part of June.
Okay, thank you.
Council reports, anything?
I had an occasion, I had a complaint about a police officer, and it seemed to me the best thing to do was just go to court, just see what the officer's side was. And so I spent an afternoon observing Muni Court and Judge Jones, and I heard both sides of the situation, and I don't know that necessarily I have any sort of a complaint about an officer, but I did have some observations about the judge that I didn't expect to come up. I've known Steve Jones for a long time, but
Is it appropriate
ahead.
to have this now?
well, I just wanted to ask if any of the other council members had complaints, that maybe it's something that we could put on the work session or talk about it at some other time.
I haven't had any complaints.
I've heard no complaints.
No, but we can, if we need to, we can discuss it more, but I don't think so.
Another thing that I wanted to ask the rest of council was if we wanted to go forward with any more marijuana legislation concerning permits, and I'm not going to get into detail here because Rick's not here, and I want Rick to hear this, but if you're paying attention to what's going on in Pueblo, it's a nasty situation, and there might be some preventative ordinances that we can put on the books to keep some of those problems from happening here. And so, and what I'm getting at is maybe permits to prevent grow houses that are using excessive demands of energy, causing houses to burn down. Permits that might allow our police to go in and actually count how many marijuana plants that an individual has and see if they're within the law. So anyway, I was going to throw that out to the rest of council.
We can see if the police department thinks that we've had problems with that, if it's been so you
At this
we
point,
can
I'm
get
not
that.
aware that
Yeah.
we've had any issues.
Mhm.
That would of course be something I guess we'd have to look and see the effect that we would be facing, that they're seeing because they have a higher population.
Yeah, so we can just, be aware of it.
Right, the attitude that I've gotten back was that the DA's office doesn't really want to pay attention to it. It's a lot of effort to go to, and that for their office, they would rather just see these kind of situations die in other ways. I feel as if our police force works for the city of Brush. They don't work for the DA's office, and we've said no to retail marijuana, and that means growing for intent to distribute as well. So
They can grow at home.
they can grow at home, but they cannot sell to other people. That's
Correct.
distribution.
That's correct.
And there's a limited number of plants, Bo.
Correct.
And I live on the south side, so maybe I have a little different skew of, it seems to me like the entire state knows where the drugstore is on the south side except for the Brush police. So, maybe at a different time when Rick's here, we can,
All right,
Get
we
another
can
input.
put that on at a later date. All right. Other comments? Ki- Oh, no, it was Andrea that was, or Janine that was with me at our last outreach session, April 4th. And we did have one person come and talk, but we will, and it was about golf course items and things. But we'll have to see after we go through a string of these outreach sessions if we're hitting the mark, if things are building, or if we should reevaluate. So, all right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, wait, before we adjourn, we don't adjourn yet. We go into executive session. So, is there a motion to, let me get to my sheet here. Is there a motion to go into executive session? All right. Do I say this motion, or does somebody else say the, I move to go into executive session?
Someone else should say.
Pardon?
Someone should offer a motion to
I'll
go.
make a motion that we go into executive session according to the purpose of an executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators specifically for the purchase of real estate.
Second.
Second, discussion, and roll call vote.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Becker?
Yes.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Okay.